Hey everyone, today we're going to be going over some PostgreSQL exercises. If you'd like to follow along, check out pgexercises.com. So here we see a list of different exercises we can cover. Today we'll be going over all of the basics. Now, before we actually get started, I just want to go over the layout of this website. So we have a couple of different tables up here. So we got the members, bookings, and facilities, and this right here shows the schema and how everything is connected. So you can see that the member ID information in the members table is connected to the members ID from the bookings table, and you'll see how all of that is connected. We can write our code in this text box. We'll get our results right below it, and then to the left of that, this is the expected results of what we're trying to achieve. And then at the end, you'll be able to look at the answers and look at any explanations provided down below. So starting with the first question, we're trying to retrieve all of the information from the facilities table, which is right here. So in order to do that, we want to use the keyword select. And then since we're pulling all of the information, we can use an asterisk and then use the keyword from to specify the table. And here we're looking at cd.facilities. So here we can run that and we'll see we get the correct answer. So we'll move on to the next exercise. So here you want to print out a list of all of the facilities. So again, we're using the cd.facilities table and their cost to members. So how would you retrieve a list of only facility names and costs? So if we look at the expected results, we have two tables or two columns that we're trying to pull. So here again, we want to use the select keyword, but instead of using an asterisk to pull all of the columns, we just want the name. And then to separate columns, we just use a comma. So name, and then we want to pull the member cost. And again, we're selecting the table from cd.facilities. So let's try running that. There you go. Next, how can you produce a list of facilities that charge a fee to members? So we're looking at any rows that has a member cost above 0, right? So again, we can start with select. And it looks like we're pulling all of the columns, so we can use an asterisk from cd.facilities. But in this case, we have a condition where the member cost has to be above 0, so we can use the keyword where, and then type in the column name, member cost is greater than 0. Let's try running that. And there you go. Okay, next, how can you produce a list of facilities that charge a fee to members and that fee is less than 1/50th of the monthly maintenance cost? So we're going to return these columns, and we want to have a condition where the member cost is less than 1/5 of the monthly maintenance cost. Okay, so here we want to select the facility ID, name, member cost, and monthly maintenance from cd.facilities. And then we want to put in the keyword where so that we can set a condition. In this case, we are looking at facilities that charge a fee to members. Okay, so we have multiple conditions actually where the member cost should be greater than 0. And then if we want to add multiple conditions, we can use the keyword and. Say that the member cost is less than the monthly maintenance divided by 50. So let's try running that. And there you go. For our next question, how can you produce a list of all facilities with the word tennis in their name? So here we have a condition, but rather than a number, we want to look up this string or text for tennis. So we'll select all columns from cd.facilities where the name, and instead of using an equal sign, we want to use the keyword like. And so this looks at patterns in a certain string. So here we want to look up tennis, so we can close those in single quotations. Now let's say we try to run this, we actually won't get any results. So here when we say like tennis, this is looking for any facility names that is set to tennis. Now in this case, we see that we have results where there are words that come after tennis and also before tennis. So we want to use the percentage sign before as well as after. So here this is looking up any names with the word tennis in it with any text that comes before and after the word tennis. So we'll run that, and there we go. Alright, for our next exercise, how can you retrieve the details of facilities with ID 1 and 5? Try to do this without using the OR operator. Okay, so again, we're going to be selecting all of the columns from cd.facilities, where, and here we're looking at the facility ID, so we want to type that in. And in the question, it's saying not to use the OR operator, so I'll show you what it looks like with and without. So we can say where facility ID equals 1 or facility ID equals 5. So if I run this, this should work and it pulls the right answers. But let's say we're trying to avoid using OR. We can go ahead and use a keyword called in parentheses 1 comma 5. Let's try running that and we get the same answer. So the benefit of using this in keyword is to reduce the number of text that we need to type, where for example previously we had to type facility ID equals for each condition. Now let's say we have multiple facility IDs where we need to look at 1, 5, 8, 10, 12. In that case, this would be a lot faster for us to enter all of the integers. Alright, next, how can you produce a list of facilities with each labeled as cheap or expensive depending on if their monthly maintenance cost is more than $100? So here we're looking at the facilities table and referring to the monthly maintenance information. So if it's greater than $100, we'll label that row as expensive. If it's equal to or less than, we'll use cheap. Now in this problem, we're going to be introducing a new keyword. So let's say we need to look up the syntax. We can always Google that information. So here we'll type in SQL case. And here we get an idea of what that syntax looks like. So we want to start by typing in case. And then here we enter the condition. So when the monthly maintenance is greater than 100, then we want to output expensive. And then we can also add a second condition where when the monthly maintenance cost is equal to or less than 100, then we want to label it as cheap. Now in this situation, we don't actually need to add a second condition. We can just use an else statement. So again, when the monthly cost is greater than 100, we'll output as expensive. Else, everything else should be labeled as cheap. So let me show you how that works. So we can select the name column, and then we'll have a second column that's labeled as cost. And then we want to pull this from the facilities table. Okay, so that's the basics of how we want to set this up. Now, let's move this to a second line. And we want to start by using the keyword case. And we want to use when, and then entering the condition. So when the monthly maintenance cost is greater than 100, then we want to label it as expensive, and you want to enclose that in single quotes since it's a text. Okay, and then here we can add a second condition where we say when the monthly maintenance is equal to or less than 100, then we'll label it as cheap. But since there are only two conditions, we can use an else keyword and label that as cheap, and we want to enclose these in parentheses and label it as cost. Great, so we'll go ahead and run that. Looks like I'm missing something. Forgot we need to use a, we want to end all cases with the word end. Okay, we'll run that. There you go. Alright, next question. How can you produce a list of members who joined after the start of September 2012? Return the following columns. Okay, so here we're using the members table, and we want to reference the join date column here. Okay, so let's start by using the keyword select, member ID, surname, first name, and the join date from the members table. And then here we want to add a condition. So we'll use the keyword where join date is equal to, greater than or equal to, and then here we can use the year, month, date syntax and close those in single quotations. So we'll type in 2012-09-01. Let's run that. There you go. Alright, for our next problem, how can you produce an ordered list of the first 10 surnames in the members table? The list must not contain duplicates. So here we're introducing 3 new keywords. The first one is to order the list. Second is to just get the first 10 results, and then avoiding any duplicates. So we can get started by selecting just the surname from the members table, and then we can use the keyword order by and type in the column name surname. By default, this is in ascending order. We can of course have it in the descending order as well, but by default we'll go ahead and set it to ascending order. We can test this by running it, and we can see that we now get a result of the surnames in alphabetical order. Next, we want to just grab the first 10 surnames, so we can use another keyword called limit, type in 10, run that, and then we can see that now we just get the first 10 results. Next, we want to remove any of the duplicates like we see here for Baker, so we can use the keyword distinct, run that, and we get the correct answer there. Okay, for our next problem, you for some reason wants a combined list of all surnames and all facility names. Okay, so here we're using the surname column from the members table, and then we want all of the facility names from the facilities table. Okay, so let's start by getting the first list. So we want to select all surnames from cd.members, and then for the second list we want to get all of the facility names there. So again, we want to use select name from cd.facilities. Now this one, actually combine it, we need to use a keyword called union, and this should stack the information into one column. So let's run that. Let's see what I'm getting wrong. Perhaps you meant to. Oops, that should be surname. Let's try that. There you go. Okay. Okay, for our next question, you'd like to get the sign up date of your last member. How can you retrieve this? Okay, so we're looking at the members table, and we want to look at the join date with the latest date. Okay, so we want to start by selecting join date from the members table. Now here we want to introduce another new keyword called max. Since we're looking at the latest join date, we'll type in max and close this column in parentheses, and we can run that query. There we go. And in this case, we can name the column as latest, so we can type in as latest, and this, instead of saying max, should show as latest. There we go. Next, you'd like to get the first and last name of the last member who signed up, not just the date. So this is just adding on to the previous exercise where we have the most recently joined member, and then including the first and surname. So there is an incorrect way to do this and a correct way to do it. I'm going to first show the incorrect way so we can avoid making this mistake. So we can go ahead and type in select first name, surname, and then just like in the previous exercise, get the max join date from the members table. So we'll run this query. We do get an error. So what's happening is we're looking at the first name and the surname, which is a list of rows that's trying to pair with a single join date, since the max keyword is aggregating the join dates and outputting just this information right here. So we are getting an error. So instead of including the max function right here, we can actually use what's called a subquery, which is a query within a query. So let me show you how that works. So we want this information, but just the row with the max join date. So here we have a condition that we can use. So we'll use the keyword where join date is equal to the max join date, but we would need to use a subquery. So let me enclose this in parentheses and type in select. And just like we've been doing this with any query right here, we'll create a subquery within this. So select the max join date from cd.members, and then try running that. There you go. So this subquery right here, if we ran just this is from the previous exercise, we get the date right here. Okay, so it's finding the max join date, and then in this query, we're setting a condition where the join date for this information must equal this latest date. Okay, and then if you are confused on why the first method didn't work, feel free to read the explanation here. It gives you a little bit more in-depth description on that. Okay, we just covered all of our basic exercises for today. I hope that was helpful. Feel free to leave any questions or comments down below. Thanks.